How's it going, everyone? This is Intermission Entertainment, bringing you your source of entertainment during the intermission. We've started out, we made it through. How's it going, everyone? Realistically, it's been a very busy week for me, um, but we're back. I'm happy to sit here, just kind of talk some hockey today. Very big interview. I would like to take a minute to actually thank Dan Robertson. We're gonna play this at some point during the podcast. I'll send it over to that. But I had the chance to sit down and chat with Dan Robertson, and I'd like to thank him for giving me his time. And over the past couple of weeks, he's been very helpful towards me. I've asked him lots of questions, but he's been great to respond to me and great to give me his time. So I really appreciate that, Dan, and um, I hope to pay you back sometime in the future. So just a thank you to him. We're gonna get into just some hockey talk now. Miracle on Ice was 44 years ago to today. I saw that on Twitter. Frank Saravelli tweeted it out. Jake DeBrusk did an interview with Louis DeBrusk before the game. The Bruins played last night, and he said, "I got this golden ticket that you made you when you were a kid," and he gave it to him. And he said, "I'm cashing it in now." He said Jake DeBrusk needed a goal or an assist, or else he had to do 30 push-ups. Jake DeBrusk kind of laughed, and he was like, "I don't know about the push-ups," but then he actually went out and scored a goal, so he doesn't have to do the push-ups. So just a fun little thing to see in the game. It's great to have those little storylines and just those kind of tales on the side. So yeah, that was great to see. um, Yuri Slavkovsky, Nick Suzuki's point streaks came to an end last night. I was pretty upset myself, but that's fine. Rebuilding year anyways. We're good. So Suzuki, I've seen a lot of chatter around him lately. There's possible talk of him going for a Selkie, and I think realistically he is one of the better two-way centers in the game. I think a lot of people kind of sleep on him and don't respect him as much as they should. He's a phenomenal player in my eyes. I think he's great. Um, Defensively is where he shines through. So I saw a play last night he made when we were playing against the Sabres, and I saw that he made a big mistake. He turned over the puck, and they went the other way. It was on a breakaway, and Suzuki got back and he lifted the guy's stick without taking a penalty, which is very hard in today's game, and he stopped the goal from being scored. So it's just it's those, I want to say little plays, but they are big plays that he pulls off. And I think if Suzuki won the Selkie, it wouldn't surprise me because I think he's a great centerman in the game, and I think he can really thrive in these next few years coming into his prime. And I'm excited to see what the Montreal Canadiens are going to do. Um, Matthews hit 51 last night. He hit 50 and then he hit 51. This is in 54 games, mind you. Now, Matthews is on pace for 77 goals, I think, right now, which is a tremendous stat. The last time we've seen a guy score 77 goals in the NHL, it's been a while. So I think with this amount of skill that Matthews has, he could go down as the most prolific goal scorer of all time. Because I think right now he's on pace, or he's past the pace that Ovi's on. Now, can he stay as resilient as Ovi was over all those years? Because Ovi just really, he's in his late 30s now. He's almost 40, and he's still scoring at an all right pace. I mean, he kind of dipped off this season a bit, but even still, he's playing really good. So it's the thing is Matthews possibly as resilient as Ovi? Can he play all these years and still score all these goals? I don't know. But if he can, he will be the greatest goal scorer of all time. And I think right now he might be the greatest player in the NHL. Um, a lot of people don't respect what he does defensively in his two-way game, but it's um it's great to see from him. And I hate to say this, but kind of hoping he does get 70, 75. I mean, I think it'd be cool. But it kind of raises the question here. If Matthews gets 75 goals this season, will he win the MVP? I think it's kind of boiled down to a point where he almost has to. I mean, McKinnon is up there right now for the MVP, and same with Kucherov. But I mean, where Matthews is right now, with Riley being out, I think they've won their last 4 games or 5 games or something. They've been playing great, and I think with the current state of the Leafs and them being so top heavy and so reliant on Matthews and Nylander and Marner and that bunch, I think there is a legitimate case there for Matthews to win the MVP if, well, obviously if he scores 75 goals, he probably will. So that'd be nice to see. Um, and yeah, Montreal claims Colin White off waivers today. Just a bit of a unexpected move, and they put Gignac on waivers for the purpose of sending him back down to the minors. Just a little bit of waiver news there. There were a couple other guys placed on waivers today, but just thought I'd kind of center that one around Montreal. Um, Connor Bedard, he's been playing great. Um, he was on the bench though the other night, and they had him mic'd up, and Foligno kind of leaned over and said something to him about the play, and then Bedard was like, You're just a little slow," and then Foligno leaned back over and he go, "You calling me slow?" And then Bedard kind of laughed and he was like, "No, no, 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 no," but he just funny little interview coming off the bench there. Um, some news coming out of Vegas today. Mark Stone has been placed on the IR. Frank Saravelli tweeted out. Sounds like Vegas Golden Knights Mark Stone is dealing with a lacerated spleen. Tough timeline um, to pin down with an injury of that nature, but it's obviously a significant one. He's week to week right now. So, what does this kind of mean for Vegas going forward? I think they are definitely going to make a move at the trade deadline. Riley Smith could possibly come back because I heard some rumors out of Pittsburgh that he doesn't really want to be there, and he hasn't really felt like a Penguin since being traded there. He feels like a Knight, so I think you could be on the lookout for Riley Smith going back to Vegas, and just some big moves there to be made. Obviously, Vegas have great goaltending if they can stay healthy, and a massive defense. But with their forwards right now, with Mark Stone being out, it's a little iffy. I mean, they definitely are a very well-rounded team, but they need that elite top-end point getter who can play a great two-way game like Stone can. So it'd be nice to kind of see Vegas go out and make a big move. Now, do I think they'll go out and get like a Gensler or a guy like that? No, I don't. But I do think they'll go out and they'll get a good 40 to 60 point guy who plays a good two-way game who can fill in on the wing. Now, that does also depend on Stone's timeline, sorry. But he could be out for 2 weeks, he could be out for 2 months, you don't know. So with an injury of that nature, I hope he gets better and interesting things to come out of Vegas. Um, there's really been an abundance of goaltenders on the market this year, which has been rare over the past few years. So I think you're going to see teams make a lot of big moves. I mean, Montreal has 3 goaltenders right now. I know teams like Anaheim they were looking to shop John Gibson. So it's just you could see Fleury coming out of Minnesota. There's just a lot of goaltenders available, let's say this year, and I think with such an interesting time in the NHL, I think you could see a couple of goalies get dealt. So it'd be cool to see. With a lot of teams demanding goaltenders, it'd be nice to see some big trades go down. Great for the fans and everything. So yeah, hopefully everything uh, actually holds off till the trade deadline. Because this year it'd be nice if we could actually see some trades on the trade deadline instead of 2 weeks prior and then everything being done. So yeah. Um, there was a great story come out of the NHL today. Cody Hodgins, he realistically the AHL, I think, but he he was forced to retire 8 years ago after being diagnosed with malignant hypothermia. Um, he's now 33 years old, and he got a chance to play again in the AHL. He got signed to a PTO, and today he scored his first goal in the third period. So it was great to see a nice story come out like that, and it's very happy to see a guy like that kind of make his way back into the NHL. It's a great story, and you like to see guys succeed. So, wishing him the best, and maybe he can even fight his way back into an NHL roster. It'd be great to see. I think I'm actually going to send it over to the Dan Robertson interview right about now. That should be about 28 minutes long, and then, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. I'd like to thank Dan Robertson, and we'll send it over now. Former voice of TSN 690 Radio and current play-by-play announcer for the Winnipeg Jets, Dan Robertson. Everybody, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, Ron?
Good. Great to have you on today, and hopefully interview goes good.
Yeah, sounds good. Whatever you need.
All right. Um, I'm just I'm interested in the way you kind of get into broadcasting and how you really came to where you are now. I know it wasn't a easy path and it was kind of a difficult struggle, but could you elaborate on how you kind of found your passion for this?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long story, but I can make it short. I was 21 and I had graduated from St. Mary's University and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And then one day I was watching TSN and I guess it was Sports Desk or whatever it was called back then. And I thought I could do that. I know enough about sports and I think I could handle it. So I went to a broadcasting school in Halifax. It was like a 7 month course. I don't think it exists. Well, I know it doesn't exist anymore. And then I kind of moved out of the country for a while. But when I came back to Halifax, I went to actually Eastlink Community TV, which is still going, and I said that I'd like to do some stuff on air. Eventually, that worked into hosting, and then I did some color for different sports. But then I did hockey play-by-play, and I was about probably 29 or 30 at the time, somewhere around there. So I did hockey and basketball and football and baseball, and it gave me a lot of opportunity, and I kind of kept going from there. So I was with Eastlink for 12 years, and then applied for a job in Montreal in 2014. I was there for 8 years, and now it's my second year in Winnipeg.
Oh, perfect. So bit of a long journey and took you a while to kind of figure out what you wanted to go into, but great to see where you're at now. Um, I was just wondering, you mentioned you did to me on the phone, you did road games for the Moncton Wildcats
That's right.
when you were coming up. And did you just do that for one season?
I did, yeah. And come to think of it, I have no idea how I found out about that. I was living in Halifax, and my wife at the time and I had two little kids, and I was actually working two other jobs that weren't great jobs, but good enough. And then so I would drive to Moncton and get on the bus with the team, and I would go do road games. And I think I was making 225 a game. Like obviously, it was a different time,
Yeah.
but much money. But we both knew it would be a good training ground for me. And I was just there for a year, and then I got on with Eastlink.
Okay. Sure. And kind of just on those road games, did you how does it work when you get on with Eastlink? Do you just send in clips of what you were doing, or do you send in VHS tapes, or
Well, it was around the same time I had been doing some stuff with Eastlink, kind of, I think a little bit before the Moncton. Oh, I know I did. I sent Moncton some footage of calling a Mooseheads game um, on TV. So I was there first, and then, but when I was with Eastlink at that point, I was working for like $50 a game, and I was glad to do it. I mean, it was basically school for me. It was opportunity to learn and to show what I could do, but learn more than anything. So I think that's how it was, and I believe in that. I don't know what people get paid today for things like that, but I was happy to do it because I knew that was the best way to have the best shot to get where I wanted to go. So it was a lot, but I enjoyed it. And I mean, my time in Moncton, they were coming off a season where they made a run at the league championship. So in junior hockey, lots of time they'll sell the future to try and win now. So the next year was the year I was there, and they weren't good, we'll say that. But they had Corey Crawford, who, Corey's was a terrific NHL goaltender. They had a guy named Steve Bernier who played in the NHL. He's a first round pick, so you could see that they'd be good in a few years. But I mean, we the team lost a lot, but I had a lot of fun, and I think I learned a lot too.
Yeah. Um, just kind of in that line of work, it's very important to be non-biased. Um, it's especially where you are now, being in such a high level, knowing kind of what team to. Is it hard to not get attached to one team when you're constantly broadcasting them?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the first thing is I don't work for the Jets, so if I did, I I think I would be expected to be more of a homer. I'm not a homer by nature. I don't like homers. I get it though. When your producer or your boss tells you to be more of a homer, then you probably should. The years I was in Montreal, my first couple of years, my boss and I wasn't working for the Canadians, but we had their radio contract, so I worked for TSN Radio. He said you could stand to be more of a homer, and I said no, I can't do it. It's not in me. But I mean, I do. Obviously, I work for TSN, and we have the regional contract for the Jets, so we broadcast through Manitoba into Saskatchewan, into northwestern Ontario, into Nunavut, apparently, and so it's pretty wide ranging. And people who tune in, by and large, are Jets fans. I know that, so I have to kind of lean toward the Jets a little bit, but I'm not going to be so much of a homer that I come across as stupid and that I miss the obvious. So as we speak, the other day on Monday we were in Calgary and the Jets had a pretty poor game. Now I can't go out there and say that they're playing a good game, or I'm going to look dumb and I'm not going to have any credibility. So I guess on the personal side, though, you get to know these guys a little bit and you see what they do every day and how hard they work. So you tend to favor them at least a bit. I think that's normal, but I don't think you should go over the top in that way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. And kind of a couple of big trades went down in the NHL, and the Winnipeg Jets ended up getting Sean Monahan. What did you think of that deal, or did you have any thoughts on it when it happened?
Well, I have a lot of friends who still work in Montreal, so they had seen a lot more of Monahan than I had. I mean, obviously, I'd see him a couple of times over the years, probably twice a year, because that's how often the Canadians would play the Flames. I mean, we knew that the Jets needed a second line center. It was just the way they were put together. So it wasn't a surprise necessarily. Maybe I was surprised that it came a little earlier than the trade deadline, but why not go and get somebody if you can afford him? So it's worked well. I think it's 7 games he's played now with the Jets, 6 or 7 at this point, and he does a lot of things well. So the Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff is a good one. He has to deal with the fact that this isn't exactly a destination for unrestricted free agents. So I guess that's aside from making trades, but he and his staff are pretty good talent evaluators, and so far it's been good. They needed help in the power play. They needed somebody who could win a face-off. He's good at both of those things, and he's a smart player and a good guy too. Apparently, he's pretty low key. Boring Sean Monahan, right? That's the famous Twitter handle. But yeah, so far so good. It looks like a nice move.
Yeah. Kind of being where you are now, do you have to write any articles with your line of work or no?
I used to when I worked for TSN Montreal, I would write the odd thing just after my phone by Bill. I didn't want to do it. I'm not bad at it. A number of years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I approached the Chronicle Herald and I said, "Look, there's enough guys in Nova Scotia in hockey that I could write like a weekly sort of a column or a feature." So I did that. I enjoyed it. I remember doing one on Rick Bonus, but I did one on John McIsaac, who's a referee from, I think John's from Truro. Um, there's a guy, McDonnell's his last name. I can't remember. That's terrible. I can't remember his first name. He's a linesman from Antigonish. One of the assistant equipment managers with Ottawa is Ian Cox. Ottawa, he used to work for the Mooseheads. So just guys like that, and guys who played junior in Halifax or Cape Breton. I spoke with some of those guys. I did an interview with Nikolai Ehlers, and anyway, just I say that because a lot of it is interrelated. Like the stuff that I do on air, I think a lot of on-air people can write, and vice versa. So they're connected. And I think if you get a chance to do that, it's a good idea to do it if you're aspiring to be a broadcaster. It's a smart thing to do.
Okay, perfect. There's a lot of young people I find who just kind of watch on TV and look up to you guys in your line of work. And do you kind of realize that when you're up there? Like, is it stressful by any means, or just kind of your love of the game carries you through for that?
Yeah, no, I never really thought about that, and I am, I'm not sure. I've had a lot of people really tell me that, so I don't know. I don't, I don't get stressed. Regardless, I, I certainly don't get nervous. But I'm probably too hard on myself too when if I make a mistake. I made a couple last night. I just misidentified a player a couple of times in a row, and I it bothers me. That's the only thing that kind of gets to me. But I guess I've done enough of this that you know I don't worry about outside noise, whether people like what I do or if they don't like what I do. I can only control what I can do, and if people like me, great. If they don't, then I don't really care. As long as
Yeah.
my boss is, as long as I'm happy with what I do, that's what matters.
Being up in the booth, you always have a second person for play-by-play. Is there anyone that you kind of grew close to in Montreal or now in Winnipeg?
Yeah, second for analyst or color commentator. I worked with Sergio Momesso for 8 years in Montreal. Sergio played for the Canadians, the Blues twice, the Rangers, the Leafs, and who am I forgetting? The Canucks. Went to the '94 final. We became good friends, and now it's Kevin Sawyer who played about 110 games for the Bruins, the Coyotes, and the Ducks. And I got along with both of them. I really get along well with Kevin right now. He's a good broadcast partner, and we see a lot of things the same way. And we talk a lot about our broadcasts, but I wouldn't want to be paired with someone that I didn't like because you're together, joined at the hip, basically for 6 or 7 months a year, and if if we didn't if we didn't like each other, if we didn't respect each other, I guess, then that would be really difficult. But you grow to, you work alongside these guys, and mostly Kevin. But when I'm in Winnipeg, well, wherever I am, we always have a stats guy. His name is John Matheson. He's great. So I think it's important that everybody, you don't have to like each other. Any workplace, you're not going to always like each other, but if you understand each other and respect each other, then I think that works pretty well.
Okay. And it makes it easier. A lot of those guys come from the game, and they kind of do that as a retirement thing to stay involved. So, is it easy kind of having someone to bounce knowledge off of and someone who has a very good understanding of the game?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, so I think as far as Kevin goes, Kevin just turned 50. I think he retired like at 30. And there was a point in my life when I was your age and I thought 30 was old. And then you get there and you realize it's not, and you've got a long road ahead of you. So we get into coaching and then eventually broadcasting for Shaw in BC, and then on to this. This is his seventh year, but it is. And I mean, I know I played the game like millions of us do in this country, and I think I understand it fairly well to a certain level, but I don't understand it as much as Sergio did or as much as Kevin does, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I learn from them, whether it's something Kevin will say on air or just in a chat. All the time he'll say something, and I'll say, "Well, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that," but so that's good. I mean, my it's good that I'm able to chime in and give my opinion once in a while, but in my role, it's not really what or why. I say who and what's going on, and he tells us why. So but it is, and I'll ask him questions from time to time about things, and at the same time you have to be confident in your own knowledge of the game as well.
Yeah. Um, I just kind of to switch on to another topic here, do you have any buildings that you really enjoy going to?
Yeah, I do. Montreal's my favorite. Uh, it's yeah, it's like no other place, and I think it has the most seating, either that or Chicago. Chicago's great too. We're actually going tomorrow. We have a game Friday, and we were there 2 days after Christmas. And I mean, the Blackhawks are terrible this year, but Bedard scored both goals. He got the second in overtime, and it was like they'd won a playoff series. It was really great. And Madison Square Garden in New York is my other one. It's just such a famous building, and it's seen so many great sporting events over the years, and concerts too, for that matter. So it's an iconic building. I mean, it's the world's most famous arena, they call it. So those three are my favorite. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones, but those three are at the top of my list.
Um, kind of with the bad ones. How's Calgary's rank? I heard it's fallen apart a little bit, but I
Yeah,
guess
it's stage. It's pretty terrible. If you're afraid of heights, then it's not the place for you. You have to walk across the ice on the catwalk. Well, I mean, way above the ice, but it's the view. The viewpoint is great. You're right on top of the action, so I mean, you're a little crammed in there. And some places are brand new, like in Edmonton. It's a brand new building, but it was like the broadcasters were an afterthought. You're way up and back, and it's really hard to see. So when before I got to the NHL, I thought, well, every building must have a great sight line, but that's not the case. Most do. Some of them don't, but you have to live with it, because people watching aren't going to cry you a river if you can't see as well as you should be able to.
yeah. Kind of where you're at in Edmonton. Is there anyone who like stands out? Obviously, McDavid has tremendous speed and just a very dominant player in the game. But when you're watching from up above, it's like some players kind of stand out to you?
Yeah. Do you mean specifically Edmonton or just across the league?
Just kind of across the league, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's certainly. I mean, Nathan McKinnon is one. I've watched him long enough to know he's got that great jump when he grabs the puck, and players. You see enough guys, and they're identifiable just by their mannerisms and their movements. But McKinnon is certainly one. The speedsters, the faster guys stand out. I mean, you watch Cale Makar, and he's a brilliant skater. I love watching the good skaters. Quinn Hughes, we were in Vancouver the other night, and we were in the stands. I didn't call the game, but it's a treat to watch him. So, but it's some guys will stand out for other reasons. Just he's just an example of a player who stands out because of his skating ability. So it's a treat to watch those guys.
Kind of just in the rookie race right now. There's obviously Bedard, who's a great offensive player, and with you guys being in the Central, playing against Minnesota a lot, what do you think of Brock Faber? Good young defenseman logging a lot of minutes right now.
Yeah, I watched them last night while we're here. They have a lot of faith in him. I think he's at 25 minutes and 5 seconds of ice per game, and he's 22, I believe. So one thing that stood out last night is that he has the green light to take off and go to the net. A couple of times I looked up, and he was right at the side of the Jets' goal. So that's a tough position to play as a young guy. Most guys, most defensemen, it takes them a while to round into form and to kind of learn the game and learn the position. But he seems to be an exception to the rule. So John Hines likes him. I mean, I think he was a second round pick of the Kings, so he wasn't that high of a pick. So obviously he's surprised some people. But yeah, he's been impressive so far.
Yeah. Um, just kind of, is there anyone that you see? I don't know if you guys ever see the AHL games when you're there, but is there any prospects or anyone coming up that you kind of think will be a great player in the NHL someday?
I don't watch much of it. The only I keep track of the Manitoba Moose a little bit, obviously, because of the Jets farm team. There's a couple of guys down there. I don't necessarily think they're going to be stars, but a guy named Brad Lambert, who was a late first round pick a couple of years ago, he seems to have some skill, and he's kind of finding his way. So Brad would stand out. Other than that, I know there's Rutger McGroarty. He's the University of Michigan, so he's not an AHLer. But yeah, I just don't have time to pay attention to the American Hockey League, really.
Yeah. Um, being in the career for so many years, I noticed that you called the Montreal playoff games. You called a few of those during the finals in 2021. Um,
Yeah, for 8 every game of the Canadians. Yeah.
yeah. What was that run kind of like for the Montreal Canadiens and being able to call that?
Oh, it was good. It wasn't as good as it could have been because of COVID. So uh, back then, of course, they had what was it? I can't remember what they called the two conferences or whatever. Um, but well, I guess they were in the Canadian division, right? So they upset the Leafs, and then they swept the Jets, and then they beat the Golden Knights to get to the final. When I took that job, I was hoping two things would happen: that they would play the Leafs in the playoffs, and that they get to a final. Both of that happened, but it was disappointing because the buildings were empty. Especially the first two series were empty, and then I think by the time they got to the semi and played the Jets, they were allowed whatever. I don't know how they came to some stupid number like 5,000, but it was disappointing. I know obviously the city was into it and behind it, but really it wasn't like the real thing. And then they got to the final against Tampa and they won the one game. So the city had fun. It was okay, but it wasn't what it should have been because of COVID.
Um, did you really during that? Did you get to interview any of the players? I know you kind of go down for some of your broadcasts and ask them questions to get the viewers more intrigued. But were you guys allowed during that COVID year? Or no.
No, they would make players available through Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Being in Montreal, did you ever kind of build a relationship with some of the veterans like Chris Nyland or any of those guys?
Well, Chris is actually a good friend of mine. We worked at the same station for a while and quite some time, and he kind of took me under his wing. That's who Chris is. Chris is a protector in a lot of different ways, and so he and his girlfriend Jamie would have me to dinner a lot when I first moved to the city, and that meant a lot. And whenever I'm there, I try to go and see him. We stay in contact a lot, so we have a really good relationship, and he's a nice man. So I'm proud to. I'm not. I won't say I'm proud to say he's my friend because of what he did for a living, but he's just a nice guy, and it's cool to be able to call him a friend that way.
Um, so yeah, is there any like places on the road that you like to visit, like bars or restaurants, just good food places or anything like that?
Yeah, I think all of the cities have them, and when you go around enough times, you get used to the ones that you like, and you tend to go back to them. There's one in Columbus actually that I went to for my birthday last year, and then I went the year before, and I can't, it always slips my mind that one. But that's kind of the neat thing about traveling. Like tomorrow we'll go to Chicago, and it's a great city, and we stay right downtown. So there's lots of cool restaurants and things within a small radius, and that's part of the fun. If you get an extra day off, I like to get out and walk and try and find different things. But you have those places that you always fall back on that you like to go to, no matter which city. So that's a fun part of the job.
When you guys go to hotels and stuff like that, do you always stay at the same spot?
Um, Not always, but mostly. I mean, I know this year. Trying to think, we went to Anaheim. We stayed at a new place, a really nice resort. So the travel coordinator looks after that stuff, but most times we do stay at a new place. Actually, we stayed or I should say, we stayed at the same place. We just tried a new hotel in Philadelphia not long ago, and that was great. But I think players, if they like it, they're creatures of habit, so they want to kind of stay in the same place. But so I travel with the team and stay in the same places with the team, and I'm just happy happy to be able to do that. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. Um, Kind of getting prepped for games. Being in the NHL, it's obviously a little easier with the 32 teams, and most of the players normally stay the same. But is there a lot of things that you have to go over stat wise and player sheet wise to kind of get prepared for a broadcast?
Yeah, there is, and everybody has their way of going about things. So yesterday, which was Tuesday, it was the second of a back to back. We were in Calgary. We got home at a decent time, so I was home by 9 or something like that. So I got up. and I probably did 4 hours of work on. And then we, as I said, we all have our ways. So I make sure to update the stats for the players and for the teams, and to check on any trends. Like I think Kirill Kaprizov went into last night's game with a 5 game point streak with like 12 points. So just little things that I can use during the games. I know Cole Perfetti hadn't scored in 13 games. Now it's 14. So it's things that I like to be able to pass on to the viewers. And it's not only that, it's you try to get caught up. Obviously, I know the Jets story and what's going on with them, and you try to follow along what the other teams are doing. It's harder because there are a lot of teams, but just looking at the results, I was able to see what was going on with Minnesota the last while. So just so I don't sound like I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the broadcast, but that's a big part of it. And when you're in the second of a back to back, that makes it more difficult. But you learn little tricks to get through and find a way to get through the broadcast.
Yeah. Um, do you have a favorite game that you've called before?
Oh, I don't know that I do actually. That's a good question. I've, I mean, my first game, and I guess I don't remember the game all that well. The first home game that the Canadians had that I did was in 20 October 2014, and they had one of those great pregame ceremonies, and that was cool. Actually, there was one in, I think, I want to say 2017, in the first round of the playoffs between the Canadians and the Rangers. It was game two. The Rangers had won game one. It was at the Bell Center, and the Rangers were up 1-0 late. And I mean, if you get down 2-0, it's pretty hard to win a series. It's not impossible, but the Canadians needed that game, and they tied it. Thomas Placanitz tied it late, and then Alex Radulov scored to win it in overtime, and it was just crazy in there. And I thought, wow, if this team goes on a run, which they didn't, it's going to be amazing. But that sticks in my head for being a real thrilling game, and I'm sure there's a couple of others that I just can't think of right now.
Yeah. Um, so that's kind of all I had for you today.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming on, and I thank you a lot for helping me out here.
Anytime if you ever have any questions, let me know.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thanks. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too.
Okay, see ya.
See ya. Um, First interview, I was a little nervous. I really thank Dan. He was great. He was perfect to really ask questions, and he'd expand on them for me. So I didn't have to do much work there. But yeah, I just thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate that, and I hopefully you can come back on another time, or if you want. And I need to repay you somehow. So yeah, thank you very much, Dan. We're gonna move in here to some baseball talk. Actually, there's still a lot of players unsigned. Currently, Matt Chapman is unsigned, who's one of the best defensive third basemen in the MLB. Him and that guy with the Cardinals, not too good with baseball. But yeah, so it's just been interesting with a couple of those guys out. So a lot of people still unsigned. Just it's very interesting in the MLB. Also, Bellinger is unsigned. He was rumored to the Jays and back to the Cubs, but I don't really know how it's going to go. So, yeah. Trevor Bauer, um, there's been a big debate recently on whether he should get another chance to pitch in the MLB. He's been really trying to make his way back in, but he doesn't really have a good rep around the MLB. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. And I'll be curious to watch these baseball highlights with spring training coming up this weekend. It's great to see. So yeah, we're gonna move into a couple of rookie races here. Bedard and Faber have been playing great. We're gonna start with Bedard here. Bedard was out for a while. He was out 6 weeks, was it? And he finally comes back, and within his first 4 games, he puts up 6 points with 2 goals and 4 assists, and he also had 2 disallowed goals. Now, Bedard is almost a point per game on a team who is bottom three in the NHL. This is his first season, and he doesn't have that talented of line mates. So to see what he's going to be able to do in a couple of years, especially when they get Macklin Celebrini, because you know it's going to happen. Um, I don't know. I think it's really interesting for the Chicago Blackhawks, and I think that you can see them in the NHL in 3 years as a Stanley Cup contender when they have a very strong team because they have a great prospect pool right now. Got a couple of years left of rebuilding, and then I think they're just kind of gonna start to gradually build up and make a run like they did during the Kane and Tays era with all these great players. So yeah, it's the NHL's a good place when the Blackhawks are good. So Bettman realized that, and he's going to give them Macklin Celebrini. So it's great to see. Talking about Brock Faber now. Over his last 5 games, he's averaged 27 minutes a night. He has 2 assists in his last 5 games, which isn't great, but he has 33 points on the season, which is second in rookie scoring. Now, for a guy who's a defenseman, a rookie, he's 22 years old, he's averaging 27 minutes a night. They have a lot of faith in him, and I think he's a great player. So to be able to rely on this guy at 22 years old and just kind of getting him out of that Kevin Fiala trade, which could go down as one of the biggest win-win trades in the NHL over the last decade. Um, I think it's a very very positive thing for the Minnesota Wild, and it's just a sneak peek of what this kid's going to be able to do in a few years. So I wish the best for him, and I hope he just kind of continues on this good development path that he's on. So great to see him performing. Brad Marchand was asked about the Bruins facing adversity now instead of in the playoffs on a TNT broadcast. It was last night, I'm pretty sure. And he elaborated on the fact that they didn't really face that much adversity last season. They were kind of smooth sailing over the 82 game season, which is great. But you get to a point where it's like, so you get into the playoffs and you play the Panthers, who are a tough team. It's not going to be as easy as it was all season. The playoffs are a completely different game. Now, the Bruins are a tough team, and the Bruins are a skilled team, and they are realistically a playoff team with great goaltending. So I thought last year that it was very odd the way they went out, but playing against a team like Florida, who's just full of piss and vinegar and willing to do anything it takes to win, clearly with the Ekblad and the Chuck injuries and all that, you gotta be prepared. So to face adversity now is better than to face adversity when you're, you know, first round of the playoffs and you're down 2-0 in a series. So it's more of building confidence over anything else, and it'd be great to see the Bruins kind of go on a run this year. Because I think a lot of these guys like Marchand and those guys, Pasternak's never won, but Marchand has. He's getting towards the back end of his career, and it'd be nice to see him get another one. I mean, you can hate him all you want, but he's a phenomenal hockey player, and I think he's one of the better hockey players to come into the NHL in the past 20 years, and really just be able to do anything and be anywhere. So it's great to see from what Boston's being able to do with such a well structured team, and I think you ultimately have to thank Jim Montgomery for that and Bruce Cassidy because I'm pretty sure they're still using his defensive system, but Jim Montgomery came in there and he kind of just gave them an offensive system, and well, you've seen them just kind of run with it. So yeah, it's been great to see from them. Speaking of the Bruins, they also recalled Ian Mitchell from the AHL today, so that was good to see. And just kind of one last thing to talk about today. Matt Rempe, he had a great first game in the NHL at the outdoor game in front of 75,000 people. His first shift in the NHL, which was the 6 year anniversary of his dad's death. He was 15 when his dad died, and he just got the opportunity to fight Matt Martin because Matt Martin asked him, and then he went. He's a big kid. He's 6'7", 240 pounds. Another big kid on their team, Adam Enstrom. He's also 6'7". So they get a big fourth line there, and it was a great opportunity for him, and it was great to see a veteran like Matt Martin kind of go out there and help this guy come into the NHL. Um, so you love to see that, and you know, I just it's such a good, heartwarming story for Matt Rempe, and I hope that he can stay in the NHL and he can succeed in this league. I think with a guy of his size and his weight and his body frame, it's very rare to see a guy kind of come into the league like that, especially on offense. So great for him, and yeah, that's kind of all I got this week. Um, you know, I think recently I've been kind of getting some more wind in my sails with these interviews and just kind of confidence wise. I know I didn't get a podcast out last week. That's because I unfortunately had to put my cat down. Um, but yeah, I mean, I really I appreciate everyone watching, and I know my viewership has dipped down over the past couple of weeks, but hopefully we can get back to what we were. And yeah, I really appreciate everything, everyone. And Intermission Entertainment signing off.